Buon pomeriggio cari teachers, benvenuti al webinar Celtic Publishing, Storytelling and Clil. Grazie davvero tanto per i feedback positivi che ci state inviando sui testi d'inglese You and Me Friends e Story Lane. Avete tutti avuto modo di visionarli? Li trovate sulla nostra pagina Raffaello Scuola, testi ministeriali primaria. Abbiamo la novità, You and Me Friends, il primo corso di inglese che mette in comunicazione tutte le classi di ogni parte d'Italia. Vi ricordo che il 15 aprile ci sarà proprio un webinar dedicato a You and Me Friends dove scopriremo la struttura del testo e anche come utilizzarlo in aula. Poi, oltre ovviamente a You and Me Friends, abbiamo il famosissimo Story Lane che è basato sullo storytelling e proprio oggi con Louise, che è qui pronta vicino a me, scopriremo come integrare lo storytelling al Clil. E una comunicazione di servizio, come sempre l'attestato di partecipazione verrà inviato contestualmente, cioè vi verrà inviata un'email dove vi chiederemo di compilare un questionario di gradimento e successivamente alla compilazione di questo questionario di gradimento riceverete l'attestato. Considerate, diciamo, come tempistiche una settimana. Invece da domani sarà disponibile sul sito della Raffaello Formazione la registrazione del webinar per poterlo rivedere, anche le slide verranno condivise. Non rubo altro tempo, vi saluto e lascio la parola a Louise.
Hello, I'm Louise Baxter and welcome to the Celtic Publishing webinar, A Journey to the Centre of Learning. I've been teaching now since 1997, so for a very long time. I've been teaching in various language schools and I've had a lot of experience in an international baccalaureate school. So I would like to share my experiences with you today. And this webinar, we're going to focus on storytelling and applying Clil activities. So let's get started. So Journey to the Centre of the Earth is going to be the story that I'm going to talk about. I will read through my slides with you and I will give you some ideas and tips to make your planning a little bit easier so you can do an English lesson with a Clil approach. So I'd like to start off with this lovely quote by Nick Bilborough. Now, Nick Bilborough is a children English language teacher and he teaches online through storytelling. And his quote is, "There are many adventures in putting storytelling at the centre of what we do and in organising our teaching around it." And I think this is so relevant to today's webinar because I can just imagine the story in the middle and all the lessons that you can create around it. So, stories as a tool for teaching and learning in Clil. Stories teach us about life, about ourselves, and about each other. Storytelling is a distinctive way for students to develop an understanding. Storytelling is a method for sharing and interpreting experiences. Stories provide many opportunities for important factors that are central to Clil. So content and language integrated learning refers to teaching subjects such as science, history, geography, and maths through a foreign language, as well as other subjects. Clil exposes students to purposeful, innovative, and meaningful learning experiences. Clil seeks to support that second language learning while favouring first language development. So stories promote an incorporation of cognition and learning, many strategies put together in a Clil classroom, resulting in a better learning environment. So stories connecting to Clil. As you can see, I have my puzzle pieces. Stories can prove to be effective tools for children to develop essential concepts that encompass a Clil approach. So we have the language and the content, communication, cognition and culture. So here we have the 4 C's of Clil. And these 4 principles are essential to the Clil approach. They should be used as the framework for creating and delivering successful lessons. And this comes from Doe Coyle's 4 C's curriculum from 1999. So stories can also contain the key 4 C's. So the content, cognition, communication and culture. And this can make any Clil learning successful. So let's have a look and see how we can use these key 4 C's with storytelling. Content. The content of a story is the information and the experiences children can connect to. And therefore, they can elicit a response. So stories really are a container that carry ideas and knowledge. Cognition. The cognition of a story with vibrant illustrations can help develop understanding of how we make sense of the world, prediction, guessing, or searching for meaning and linking it to prior knowledge on a topic. So knowledge that maybe the children already have. Communication is experiencing the information, enhancing imagination and emotional response. When you tell a story, it creates happiness, sadness, hope and fear. And with those emotions, they can help really visualize the spoken words and improve vocabulary. And the culture and knowledge passed on from storytelling can be a combination of different elements like history, science, geography, art, and religion to instruct, entertain, and to preserve traditional ways of life. So in my last webinar, we talked about how generation after generation, the story goes down the line. So in a Clil lesson, all 4 language skills should be combined. And if we can combine these skills, then we're going to create fluency. So those skills, as you know, are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And listening is absolutely vital for language learning. Speaking gives the focus on fluency. Reading, you can use purposeful materials. And writing is then you can use the lexical activities through which grammar is recycled. So once you've done your listening, reading, speaking, you can then create a worksheet perhaps to do lexical activities on using that grammar focus. So there are points to consider for an effective story-based Clil teaching. And when you have in mind a storybook that you want to use in class, you really need to ask yourself questions, especially if you're going to put a Clil focus to it. So questions to ask are which areas through Clil are going to be ready for a particular subject. So can you use science? Can you use geography or art? Is there an opportunity? What vocabulary and expressions do my students need to know? Do you need to pre-teach vocabulary, or certain phrases for them to understand the story or the Clil approach. Which activities will stimulate their cognitive skills? So you know your class, so you know what activities are going to work for you. Maybe a listening skill or a reading activity to do in the classroom. Are there culture aspects of the lesson? Well, can you build up intercultural knowledge? I remember many years ago, I did a story on Handra's Surprise by Eileen Brown. And the setting was based in the south of Africa. And from there, we could talk about the culture, the African culture, African animals, the African fruit, and so on. So there was really a big intercultural knowledge aspect of the lesson. Another question to ask, can I identify the target language in English? Are there words or phrases or grammatical structures that you need? And what will help students use the target language that you're interested in? Maybe word games, flashcards, rhymes, or songs. And another question is, can I find or can I create materials like worksheets, videos, or presentations in English to use in the class? Now, online, there are many materials that you can find. I like to create my own for my own classroom. And you can always do a very simple PowerPoint presentation as well. So remember that it's really important before you start your lesson with your story to ask yourself some questions. Now, when you go on from there, you need to then think about what links from story to Clil you can make. So what subject areas is going to be your focus? So as you know, there could be just the simple language or maths, science, geography, art and craft, and history. Well, with the language, you have a whole range of opportunities because there's a range of writing genres. There's poetry, fiction, or if you are using a fiction storybook, then you may want to find a text on something that's non-fiction. So in this example of Journey to the Center of the Earth, where it talks about volcanoes, you might want to find a short text of non-fiction text about a volcano. Also, there's new vocabulary and comprehension exercises to use, looking at the chronological order and time conjunctions. In maths, is there an opportunity to look at number and place value, counting and quantity, telling the time, measurement, shapes, statistics, pictograms? I've got a book here for younger children where it has all of that in there. The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Simple story, but it talks about numbers, where the hungry caterpillar eats an apple, 2 pears, 3 plums, etc. Also, you can talk about colors and shapes and size. If you know the story, you know that the caterpillar gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's so much involved in just a simple story, so much maths involved in this particular book. Science, a life cycle of insects and animals, or even a plant, perhaps. If you remember in my last webinar, we talked about the enormous turnip. In that story, there's an opportunity to talk about the life cycle of a seed, talking about habitats of animals and the food they eat, ecology, outer space, materials, etc. It goes on and on. In geography, Like in this book here, you may want to look at location using a map or an atlas or a globe, climate, physical appearance like landforms, and geographical techniques. For example, map making. All children love to make their own maps. And then art and craft, you can really put art and craft anywhere. There's the opportunity to make pictures or draw or paint, create little books, design or make a mask or a puppet. There's so much that you can do. And in history, there may be the opportunity to talk about the awareness of time and understanding chronological and human development. So there really is a lot of opportunity if you get the right book. You need to know your book well before you start to plan. So in my last webinar, we looked at all the storytelling tasks that can make your storytelling lesson really engaging. Now, in today's webinar, I'm not going to talk about all those tasks, but I'm just going to go through quickly the list of the activities that I talked about for those that didn't see my last webinar. If you do have an opportunity to watch it, then do go into the archives of raffaelloformazione.it. Okay, so we looked at pre-storytelling tasks, and I can't stress enough how important they are. They're fundamental to your lesson. And I like to spend a lot of time on my pre-storytelling tasks, and sometimes they do take up more than 1 or 2 lessons. You may use big books and pictures and go through the pictures so your students have a good understanding of the story. There are word banks and story maps that you may want to create so the children are familiar with the words and the vocabulary that are from the story. Questions and predictions. Children like to make predictions on what's going to happen next. And again, identifying new vocabulary or using synonyms to help their comprehension. Then there are the storytelling tasks, which are tasks to do during your 2nd or 3rd retelling. And they are tasks with actions to a song, perhaps, voice emphasis for characters, chorusing, chanting, singing. And there is the close technique where your children have a good understanding of the story and they can help you complete a whole sentence. Then after, there are the post-storytelling tasks, and there are so many opportunities there as well, with difference in sequencing tasks, from pictures to written texts, story maps, lap books, the 5-finger retell, which I really love. And if you remember, you use your hand, you may use a glove, and you use your thumb to talk about the characters. So what are the characters' names? How many characters are in the story? Then you talk about the setting. Where are they? You might want to talk with the younger children, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Now with older children, you can still use the 5-finger retell, where you focus on the characters, the setting, the events of the story, the beginning, the middle, and the end, the problem of the story, and the conclusion or the resolution of the story. And that's really nice. It gives the children an opportunity to discuss and come back to you with what they've understood. Then there's the storytelling jar, which you can't use at the moment, but you can still use strips of paper with words or phrases from the story. And then there is the drama and role play. Okay, so linguistically, children's stories present grammar and vocabulary within a meaningful and structured context. And it's this context that supports the comprehension of the story world and the content the story is related to. And so they're often about the interesting topics and themes, which you can then consolidate or extend it to a related school subject, such as maths, history, science, geography, etc. So today we're going to look at how we're going to do this. So let's take a look. So I have chosen from class 3, the journey to the center of the earth, because in its simplified form, it provides so many opportunities for a Clil content. There are opportunities for science, art and design, maths, geography, and history. It is a discovery into the heart of our planet that starts in Iceland and ends in Italy. And already, I've said this sentence, I'm already thinking of some lessons that can be done. If you look, a discovery into the heart of our planet, that's an opportunity there to talk about the Earth's layers and maybe show your students that about the crust, the mantle, the outer core, the inner core. Also, the story starts in Iceland and ends in Italy. Again, that's another opportunity to look on a map or an atlas or a globe and get the children to identify where Iceland is, or where it is in comparison to Italy. Is it in the north, in the south, in the east, or in the west? So you already have a lesson there that's focused on Clil. It is a journey through time that provides many history lessons. So the children are introduced to types of plants and animals that exist in the secondary and tertiary periods. There are ancient sea creatures, and they can imagine what early man looked like. There are science and geography lessons to learn about landforms or geographical environments, volcanoes and fossils. So something that not only grade 3 or class 3, but even class 4 and 5. This doesn't necessarily mean because it's from Story Lane 3 that you have to use it for that class. You can use it for other classes as well. So we're going to look at quickly the pre-storytelling tasks. Remember to talk about the title and the characters on the cover and ask simple questions about these images, because you want to grab the children's attention. You want them to start using their inference skills and make sense of what they can see and come to a conclusion. So maybe they can already identify on the front cover that there are 3 explorers on an expedition. You might want to pick out some words which are essential to the story on your board or on your screen to encourage the children to elicit answers and create an interest. And this is what you want. And the pre-storytelling tasks are really important. So we're going to look at some tips here. So you might want to focus on the characters, on jobs and character adjectives. So you may ask on your front cover, remember you have not even opened your book yet, we're just focusing on the front cover. Okay, who is Professor Lindenbrock? Who is Hans or Axel? Okay, so you get the children's interest, maybe talking between each other as well. Who is a geologist here, or a student, or a guide? Who do you think is strong, intelligent, or scared? At this point, it's a really nice opportunity as well to give a worksheet on what the children think. You may have a list of adjectives that the children are already familiar with, and you can ask them to write what they think the character is like. So for example, the character trait for hands. I think that this character is fun, or brave, helpful, or determined. And that's a really nice activity for the children to use already familiar structures that you've looked at in the past. Again, you can go back to looking at the title and point out the word journey. You may want to write it up big on your board or on your screen if you're teaching online, because these activities you can do online as well. And ask the children what they think the word journey means. Give them other synonyms, perhaps, like travel, expedition, voyage. And once they get an idea, you can invite them to think of journeys that they have been on, and they can use their mother tongue to talk about this, because you're trying to catch their interest. They may want to tell you that they've been on a cruise, or to a country somewhere in Asia, or somewhere different from Europe. Again, point to the title and ask children to say what type of story they think it is. Now, you've generated lots of inference skills anyway from looking at the front cover. So you may want to write words such as action, adventure, and fantasy, and ask the children, what do you think this story is about? Maybe all three. So when you start to look through the pages, go through it together. If your children have their own storybook, they can use their own storybook. If not, there are the big books, or you can simply have photos of pages on the screen that you're using if you're teaching online. Look through these pictures together so they can see what the story is about, and encourage them to make predictions from the illustrations. You may want to ask questions or give simple instructions to check understanding. So for example, you may ask them to point to or show me a fossil of a reptile, perhaps, which I think we've got back here. Have a look. We can have a look over here. Okay. Or can you see a prehistoric elephant? Show me or point to a prehistoric elephant. Where is it? Is it in the forest? Is it in the jungle? Where is it? So you can use instructions to check their understanding about what they can see. Okay. You can also make comments on the story as you're going through your pictures. So if you have a look here, you can say, oh, look, Axel is scared. And you can see from his face. Repeat, Axel is scared, and you can get the children to say it. Going through the pages, you can identify, oh, look, 1, 2, 3, they are very scared. So it's really important to make short comments, not stopping too much, not going into too much detail, because remember, you haven't begun to read the story yet. These are still your pre-storytelling tasks. Okay, one idea is to also focus on the different settings in the story. And you can identify and or introduce target words for a Clil-based story. So you may want to introduce volcano, lake, mountains, forest, island, etc. and ask questions about particular pages from the book. So what can you see? Okay, can you see the mountains? Can you see a volcano or a cave? Where are the three explorers? And try to elicit the information so the children are using those target words there. Again, on other pages, you can look at a different setting. What can you see? Where are the three explorers? Are they at the sea, in the jungle, on the beach? What can you see? Okay, so asking questions. Now, at this point, you may want to choose words that are related to a Clil focus. And as mentioned in my storytelling webinar, you may want to create or print a story map or a word bank using familiar words for the students from the book. From this book, if your focus is history, I've found the words prehistoric, Jurassic, dinosaurs, primitive man, fossils, trilobites. So you've got all these history words here. If your focus is going to be on science and geography, because usually they're linked, you may want to use the word geologist, volcano, volcanic island, lava, eruption, Iceland, Germany, and Italy. So words that you're going to come across, or your children are going to come across when you do read the story. Okay, and it's at this point that I really like from Story Lane 3 in particular. There is in the course book, the children's course book, a double page dedicated to the book. And here the characters are presented together with a song, and there's a listening and a predicting exercise. Now, what's really nice is that if you have done all the pre-storytelling tasks, then your children are going to be really confident in doing this page, because they're going to already be familiar with the characters and familiar with the vocabulary that's on these 2 pages. So there's a nice listening. So you've got vocabulary, volcano, uncle, guide, journey, earth, and the children have to listen and complete. Then there's a lovely song as well. We're off to start a journey to the center of the earth. Go down, go down, go down. We are great explorers. We're big, strong, and brave. So you've got the adjectives there that we looked at in one of the first pre-storytelling tasks as well. And then there are some prediction questions. So guess what happens? So Professor Lindenbrock is a farmer, a geologist, or a student. So by the time you get to doing a page like this, your children are going to be really very confident that they can do all of these activities well. So, and I think this is really nice before you actually start your story. When you've done an activity like this, it will then be wise to go on to doing your story. So if you are planning a Clil focus, then you need to have a short plan that's going to show you what your subject goals are and what your linguistic goals are. So I've given you just an idea to show you, one for history and one for geography. So let's have a look at this one. So you've got your story. Why are you using this story? Well, maybe because you want the children to become familiar with the structure of a volcano and types of landforms to link with geography, perhaps. What are your goals for Clil? Well, maybe you want the students to learn and label simple physical characteristics of a volcano. Learn, identify and label different landforms in English. And then the goals, the linguistic goals, that the students should become familiar with vocabulary relating to a volcano, like volcano, crater, eruption, explosion, volcanic island. And you may want them to be able to identify and label types of landforms and revise the present simple structures as they that's in the story. So they go, they meet, they climb, and there's also third person singular. If your focus, however, is history, then you may have chosen this story because you want the children to be familiar with Jurassic or Triassic eras with a timeline. You may want them to learn the names of dinosaurs and vegetation from a prehistoric era, or primitive man, or the first forms of life. For the subject goals, the student should learn about different prehistoric animals, first forms of human life on Earth, understand chronology or the passing of time. And their linguistic goals would be for the children to become familiar with vocabulary relating to prehistoric animals and time expressions like trilobites, dinosaurs, Jurassic, tertiary, the tertiary era. You may want the children to be able to identify types of dinosaurs and plants, and again, revise the present simple structures from the story. So it's always important to create a plan together with your story where your Clil focus is. So read or tell the story with your class. So you're at the reading point, you're at the storytelling task. And remember to look carefully again at the pictures. And as you tell the story, they will hear all the vocabulary and phrases from the pre-storytelling tasks. So they're going to feel really confident now. They're going to identify the characters, the setting, the events, and the target language in the story. Now, remember that when you do tell your story for the first time, to just read it through slowly without any interruptions. And it's then during your second retelling of the story is that you can encourage your children to then participate. So, for example, you may want to do a close technique where you continue to read the story and you invite the children to complete the sentence, or produce or create flashcards and use them at the appropriate time. So you may go through the story for a second time and say, oh, Axel is a student, Professor Lindenbrock, a famous geologist. It is a fantastic story of an incredible journey to the center of the Earth. I'm a great fan of flashcards. I use them whenever possible. So, and all you need is pieces of colored card and write on what your focus is. Another great activity during storytelling is the listening activities, When listening for details, children are interested in listening for a specific kind of information, and that could be a number, a name, a place, or an object. And during storytelling, the teacher can center students' attention on the target language and work together with them. And this can create a lot of opportunities to review vocabulary or sentence structures. So in this activity here, you've got what do they find when they go underground? So a simple activity where the students listen to the story and they tick the correct box. So it could be the sea, monsters, trees, or town. And you can also create a simple activity as this using images from the book. Or you can, again, using the images from the story, read the text and the class decide if the statement is true or false. So going through the book, when you're reading it, they have to decide if Hans' raft breaks in a very bad storm. True or false? Did you say that? Have a look at the pictures. What's happening? Or Axel fights a very big sea monster. I remember that Axel was very scared at the beginning. The professor meets a big primitive man. True or false? And the professor and Axel find a sign from Arne Sakusinum. True or false? So simple but effective. So here we go on to post-storytelling tasks. Activities connected with the story and post-reading activities such as sequencing were mentioned in my last webinar, and they can be used. This particular worksheet here comes from the Page to Stage 1. It's a great worksheet where you go through the title, you talk about the characters, who their favorite character is. So there's an opportunity again to discuss. And then rather than sequencing with visuals, they have to, because the children are older, obviously, they can read the simple sentences and put the events into a correct order. But you can always differentiate here. If you have children that are struggling a little bit, then yes, you can use pictures from the story for them to put into the correct order. So after you have successfully read the story to your class with all the input tasks, remember, I can't state enough how important those pre-storytelling tasks are. You may decide to use a Clil focus lesson to provide further practice and consolidation of the language used. And an idea is to provide a simple glossary on your focal point. So if it's geography, you may have words such as mountains, landforms, hills, desert, cave, etc. And you may want your children to choose some of those words or all of them and draw a picture for each one. If your focus is history, then you may have the words dinosaurs, fossils, primitive man, secondary, tertiary period, etc. So it's a nice opportunity there. Okay, going back to Story Lane for the Clil page, there's a really nice double page on the geographical environments here. So again, the children are going to be pretty familiar now and feeling very confident with doing an activity such as this one. There is a listening where they have to point and repeat and listen and put the correct number in. So as you can see, there's all the words that most of them are actually in the story as well. You can go on and look at the symbols and write the correct word, and then go on to doing an activity coordinates which is linked as well with maths, where the children have to read, draw and colour the island map. So volcano is in B3. And in English, we say when you do coordinates, you go along the corridor and up the stairs. And this helps the children remember. So if you're going to put the volcano in, you go along the corridor to B and up the stairs to 3 and insert the volcano. And this is an activity that children really like because they can start getting creative. And it's a nice point here to do an extension where the children can then go on to create their own map and insert different landforms, and then they can talk and compare it with each other or as a class. And they can go on and add other features or a boat, or most children like to put sharks around an island, and they can be, it can be part as an art lesson as well. Why not? Again, a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is a great way to talk about differences or what's the same. Here, in this example for you, I've used a hill and a mountain, but you can choose any comparison. I've made a word bank with words that the children would already be familiar with after the story. So small adjectives, small, big, easy to climb, high, pointed top. You may want to give some actions. Landform, high above the land, difficult to climb, round top. The word climb they would get from the story because it's in the story. But you can use any element. You might want to use a volcano and a mountain and make those comparisons, or a river and a lake. And this is where your Clil focus is really being set. Another idea, if your focus is history, to look at dinosaurs, different types of dinosaurs, and identify differences between a carnivore and a herbivore perhaps, or the size of dinosaurs. And then you can go on to do some art and craft work. I've put some things up here for you to see. There's a really nice activity for a volcano craft activity with where the students have to label the volcano and write a volcano fact. And if you do decide to do something on volcanoes, well, it's a great time to do it because we've got Etna that's erupting at the moment, that's very active. And also, if you remember on the news last week in Iceland, so going back to the start of the story, a volcano erupted in Iceland after 6,000 years being dormant. And again, you can then use language: an active volcano, a dormant volcano, an extinct volcano, and look at those differences as well. Again, here is another labeling activity with the layers of the earth and landforms for the children to draw pictures. Or if not, you can get really creative with different coloured card and create your different landforms. And I have one here. I have a flip book where you have different landforms and a short definition for each one. So if we look at volcanoes, as we've been talking about them, we've got the title there, you can see. And it says a volcano is an opening in the Earth's crust. A volcano can be active, dormant, or extinct. And a nice picture here. Or there's an island. An island is an area of land not connected to a continent and surrounded by water. So you can do lots of these and they make a really great display. Or you can have a simple picture of landforms or something like this without the labels. And you may want to ask your class, well, what can you see? How many hills can you see? What is on top of the hills? So get them to use all their archived vocabulary. Can you see an island? Where are the animals drinking? In a river. So you're trying to use all of that target language. Use the internet as well, or watch short videos. There's so much out there now, and especially that many children around the world are online. There are lots of opportunities for short lessons, additional lessons in English, and you can find out information about landforms and geographical environments, first life on Earth, volcanoes, the Earth's layers, and famous explorers. I am a great fan of some sites. There is DK Find Out that has lots of information, and I will put this onto a slide for tomorrow when you see all the slides. Also, I use National Geographic Kids, and Ducksters is a really great site where you can get lots and lots of information. One more thing I'd like to show you from the Story Lane 3 is the lap book that comes with the story. And it's really great because there's information here on each character, where he's from, what he looks like, so a character description for each character there. There's also, it's really nice, there are different landforms here as well, and key words, target language, such as crater, tunnel, jungle, beach, volcanic island. So it's really complete. So there really is a lot that you can do from a story, as you can see. So storytelling can be considered an excellent resource to teach contents and language. Using a specific Clil framework permits learning through curricular subjects in the English language with different strategies, resources, and materials. And this can be a valuable experience for children, as they are encouraged to learn new language in a communicative and motivating way. Remember that this isn't one lesson. This is going to take, it depends on your class, but between 3 to 6 lessons at least. So I've got some questions. Okay, can the pre-story be identified? Yes, absolutely. You can use pre-storytelling tasks. Yes, from Daniela. Sorry, Daniela. Can the pre-storytelling tasks be identified with some pre-teaching language activities? Absolutely, absolutely. The more you give them, the more you talk about, the better the pre-tasks are. And like I say, they're absolutely fundamental. Simonetta, I often use storytelling during my lessons. We can speak, listen, read, and write. Everybody is involved, even if he or she has got some disabilities. Yes, and that's absolutely fantastic. And like I say, you really can differentiate with all of these activities as well. Like I said, with the sequencing, if the children aren't ready to read sentences to put them in order, then you can use pictures from the book and get them to put it in order. You can simply photocopy them, get them to color them, and then put them into the correct order. So I'd like to leave you at this point saying that stories really are your best lesson plans. So thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I've really enjoyed putting this webinar together, and I really hope that you get something from it. Thank you. Bye-bye.